These are the men and women of Beaver Valley, the bravest of the brave. They fought fearlessly for their country, their city, their community, and for the ideals we share as Americans. They served proudly in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Here now are their stories, their own experiences in their own words, the words of the heroes of Beaver Valley. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, fighting was ceased between Allied forces in Germany during World War I. November 11th, 1918 was regarded as the day the war to end all wars was finally over. Veterans Day, as we know it now, was initially called Armistice Day and honored those who served in World War I. President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed the first commemoration of Armistice Day in 1919, 1 year after World War I came to a halt. The holiday's name and purpose was changed in 1954 to Veterans Day in order to honor and remember veterans from all wars. New Brighton native Dolores Bolam remembers her brother, Raymond West, who fought in World War II. Through the letters her brother sent her and the stories that he told her, Dolores is able to keep Raymond's story alive.
There was a gang of us, and we were all for one and one for all. And when anyone picked on my brothers, well, they had to answer to me.
On a fateful Sunday afternoon, Dolores and her younger brother Paul were listening to Gene Autry. That day, December 7th, 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor.
All of a sudden it was preempted by news broadcasts.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, by air, President Roosevelt has just announced.
Paul looked at me and said, Dolores, war.
A Japanese attack upon Pearl Harbor naturally would mean war. Such an attack would naturally bring a counterattack, and hostilities of this kind would naturally mean that the President would ask Congress for a declaration of war.
All of a sudden, Raymond, my oldest brother, came in, and my mother says, Raymond, you're going to have to go to war. He was all white-faced.
Raymond would be sent to Fort Benning, Georgia, then to Indiantown Gap, before finally returning home for a brief visit. This would be the last time his family would see him in 4 years.
And during those 4 years, I wrote to him every day. And he said the day that he hit Omaha Beach, he had 3 of my emails in his pocket.
Raymond served with the Army's 1st Infantry Division. He would experience battles from Africa to Germany. He'd storm the Easy Red sector of Omaha Beach.
He came in 3 times. Then the 3rd time, he got ashore. There was only 2 yards of ocean and this cliff that he was laying against. He'd laid there for the longest time, and bullets all over. Like once he told my mom, he said, Mom, there is no reason I should be standing here. Those bullets were sleet. It was like sleet. But they were everywhere. All of a sudden he looked back down, and here comes a real stout old guy chewing a cigar, walking up, and he said, I'll tell you guys right now, he says, there's 2 kinds of people laying here. The ones that are dead and ones that are going to die. Now get the H up on that hill. Well, up Raymond went, and all the way across, clear to Germany.
Raymond would go on to earn a bronze medal in the area of Obel, Belgium on September 11, 1944. Dolores is especially proud of her brother's actions in one instance during the war.
He jumped in a foxhole, and there was a dying German in there. Raymond just stayed a few minutes, and he started to get out. This German pulled his jacket and shook his head. No, don't leave me. So Raymond lit a cigarette in and out of his mouth until he died. That showed my brother's humanity.
There were several moments in which Raymond's life was at risk. By the end of the war, he had already been saved by his fellow soldiers after he fell asleep and was encircled by German troops. But when a similar situation happened again at the end of the war, the outcome was different.
He was sleeping on the ground. You just sleep right on the ground. You're so tired, you just sleep in the snow. He woke up, rifle gone, nothing but tall black boots all around him. He thought, oh no, not again. And he's afraid of them because they were taught just to hate from a young age. Well, Raymond thought, this is it now. And they said, no, we want to surrender. So he took them back.
With the war coming to a close, Raymond was able to finish his service and make his way back home on the USS Holbrook. The West family didn't know when he'd make it back to the house exactly, but we're glad to know that he was back, safe, in the United States.
One Saturday night, the family was all sitting around listening to Lux Radio Theater. And I went from the living room out through the dining room, and the dining room lights shone on the doorknob in the kitchen. All of a sudden, I saw this doorknob turn, and the door opened, and the tiny little guy come in. To me, he was this big when I was 12, but there he was. And I run back in the room, trying to tell everybody Raymond's home. Mom says, oh, Norma, something terrible's wrong with Dolores. I was gesturing, trying to tell him Raymond's home. I was wild-eyed, you know. And so Dad made a dive for me, and I ran out. Raymond let me get past in the dark kitchen. But when Dad got there, oh, he grabbed Dad. Oh, Ace broke loose. We had him on the floor. We were kissing him, hugging him. And as long as I live, I'll remember my mother standing there, tears streaming down her face, and crying. And the next morning, he walked outside. Well, yeah, all the neighbors come running. It was wonderful. So that's the story of Raymond. He belonged to the greatest generation. He gave us our world. Men and men like him.